Nathan Eovaldi just gave the Rangers exactly what they needed, a dominant, complete game shutout. But he did it while dominating in a new way. We're talking about how he did it and more on this episode of Locked On Rangers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked onto the Texas Rangers, the first and best daily Rangers podcast. I'm Bryce Patrick, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan, covering this team for 11 seasons, including 12 seasons and all 7 as the founder and host of this podcast. It's the very start of a new season, so I'm really relearning my intro. But thank y'all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. You can follow me on Twitter at Bryce Patrick. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers. Hit subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform and on YouTube, where the best way you can help grow the show is to comment nearly any single thing below. Now, on today's show, we're talking about a 1-0 victory, the slimmest of margins, the most beautiful of gems from Nathan Eovaldi, and maybe a little bit of concern for this offense. So let's start with the most important thing from last night's game, the win. And Nathan Eovaldi being the one to deliver it. An absolute gem, a Maddox, just barely a Maddox, but still a Maddox nonetheless for the uninitiated. A Maddox named after Greg Maddux is when a starting pitcher throws a complete game on fewer than 100 pitches. And Nathan Eovaldi got the final out on pitch number 99, just by the skin of his teeth. I think that's about where the limit would be for Eovaldi, but not just getting a complete game, but a shutout when this offense, all the offense was just Wyatt Langford's bat. In the first inning, the top of the first inning, the penultimate batter of the top of the first inning, smashing one over the wall. We'll talk about Wyatt Langford and how he nearly had, 2 or maybe even 3 home runs in this game, and why I'm so excited about what he's done so far. But this Rangers pen had been used a lot in that first series to get 3 out of the first 4 wins, and 3 of them in a row. And even though in the loss that the Rangers had on opening day, they still used the A side of that pen. Unfortunately, their closer, Luke Jackson, pooped the bed in game number 1, but he did pretty darn well in the last couple of outings, that he had. But it was a taxed pen, especially with Tyler Mahle only going an inning and 2/3 on Saturday, with Kumar Rocker getting blown up. I talked a lot about that game on yesterday's show and why it was, on the verge of malpractice, of how much they were throwing Rocker, trying to squeeze that one more inning out of him. I talked about why that's not a great thing, why that's dangerous. Felt like I really got into that yesterday. But Eovaldi said, it's okay. Don't worry about me. I'm going to be great. I'm going to be economical, and I'm going to do it in a new way. Not just the standard Eovaldi way, blowing by fastballs in the upper 90s, dropping that splitter on them, occasionally mixing in a cutter or a curveball. No, this is a new version of Eovaldi, because in the past, Eovaldi has been pretty reliant on that four-seam fastball velocity. Usually, he's kind of gone as it goes. In 2021, he averaged 96.8 miles an hour with the four-seam fastball. That was his best season. That was the only season in his career where he has gotten Cy Young votes, one of his 2 All-Star seasons. He finished 4th in Cy Young voting that year, had 182 innings, 195 strikeouts, a 2.79 FIP, 4.3 baseball reference, where he was fantastic that season with Boston. And then in 2022, the fastball velo dipped down a little bit, more so in the second half because of injuries, because he was trying to pitch through things. Instead of being all the way at 97 or 96.8, it dropped 1.1 miles per hour. And at 95.7, it wasn't quite as effective, especially down the stretch. It was down further than just a mile an hour. It was around where it was the year before in the first half when he was very good, and then it fell off a little bit, and he, as a result, kind of fell off a little bit. Then you look at 2023, averaging around 95.1 miles an hour with the fastball. It was fine last year, 95.4, another good season. But when he was really at his best, he was able to run it up there in sitting, 96, 97 at times. I mean, you look at the playoffs. I mean, when he was injured, it could have been even higher in 2023. In the first half, the fastball velocity was higher. But again, you might remember that Nathan Eovaldi missed some time down the stretch in 2023, and he came back, was basically rehabbing at the big league level, so that fastball velo was down. It tamped that average velocity down, and he wasn't as effective. When he was coming back in that first game back against the Astros in that series to start September of 2023, he got absolutely blown up. And then I believe his next start was also not exactly inspiring, to the point where when the Rangers headed to the postseason, they had, okay, we feel really good about one start in Jordan Montgomery. Maybe we'll get Max Scherzer back at some point. John Gray went down with an injury. Andrew Heaney is there. Eovaldi is technically healthy. We'll see how that goes. Then he comes out in the playoffs with the Rays and averages 95 in that start, 94.9, then 95.8 in the next start against the O's, where he dominated the Orioles in the clinching game there. Then the ALCS averaged around 95.5 miles an hour, 95.6 in Game 2, 95.4 in Game 4. And then the World Series around exactly that same velo band. Game 1, 95.5 miles an hour, and then 95.4 in that beautiful, gorgeous start of a lifetime in Game 5, the World Series clincher. And then you look back at some of the games in the regular season of that season. This one really reminds me of his two best starts of the year. Now, his most iconic starts, obviously Game 5 of the World Series. That was incredibly iconic, and there will never be another start like it. His couple of starts in the ALCS were pretty good, but the games where he stepped up most, where I knew heading into the season I wasn't as high on the Eovaldi signing as I should have been back in 2023. I thought, okay, you're adding one more guy. Do you really need one more guy? I mean, I kind of would rather them. At this point, I was like, I kind of would have rather signed Michael Conforto, shore up left field and, help this offense be a little bit better. Little did I know the offense did not need help. And Nathan Eovaldi was that dude. I think it's because I kind of, blocked out the 2018 World Series. I didn't really remember that iconic moment of Evo going 6 innings in an extra inning game. But he stepped up in the biggest of way in that 2023 season. The day that Jacob deGrom went down, the day after Jacob deGrom went down in that game against the Yankees, the Rangers won that game, but it felt like, oh boy, well, our ace is down. Who knows how long he'll be down? Someone else needs to step up. And then immediately, boom, Eovaldi, complete game shutout against the Yankees. He averaged 97 in that game. And then when the pen was an absolute disaster, Jacob deGrom was still on the shelf, and there was still some thought about maybe Jacob deGrom would come back that year. Ended up not being the case. The Rangers' pen was an absolute dumpster fire at that point in May 23rd, I believe it was, towards the end of May, in Pittsburgh on that road trip where the pen had just had an absolute meltdown. 9 innings, 1 run against the Pirates, averaging 96.5 miles an hour. He could really tamp it up there. That was a game where the Rangers really, really needed him to save their pen. And this was another one of those games. And Eovaldi absolutely did that. And that's how he used to dominate, averaging in the upper 90s with that fastball. This year, it's averaging just 94.2 miles per hour, down almost a tick and a half, not quite, 1.2 miles per hour from where it was last year. And he hasn't really run it up to touch 98 at this point in the year. I mean, averaging 93.5 miles an hour in this start. So even down further from where it was on opening day. So how was he dominating? How was he able to be this good? How was he able to find something new? Because all pitchers get old. All people get old. I hate to break it to you. If you're not a pitcher, you still also get old. We have to find new ways to do things. If we are performing athletic activities, you have to be a little bit smarter, a little bit craftier. Occasionally you lose some miles per hour off of your fastball, and you have to learn how to pitch a little bit more than just throw. Early on in his career, Nathan Eovaldi very much a thrower. Even when he was at his best and relying a little bit on that fastball velocity in 2022, 2021, 2023, and even a little bit of parts of last year, he's still always been a pitcher, a guy who knows how to game plan, who is very, very meticulous, knows how to outthink you, and will do it. It will confuse you and will have you absolutely in knots trying to figure out what the heck is this guy even gonna do. Because his curveball, which looked fantastic on opening day, looked somehow maybe even better in this start and might unlock a new, even better version of Eovaldi. We're going to talk about how he did it and more right after this. This show is brought to you by Wonderful Pistachios. Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios are one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. Personally, I love the no-shells variety. It's the perfect grab-and-go snack for busy days. Whether I'm snacking at my desk on a road trip or just need a quick protein boost, they're always my go-to. And if you love cracking open every shell for that satisfying crunch, the in-shell options are also a classic favorite. Whether you're running between meetings or dropping off the kids, Wonderful Pistachios are the snack that works as hard as you do. So get snackin' and get crackin' with a snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. Shout out to the Everydayers making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. On tomorrow's show, I'll be talking about Jack Leiter's second start of the year. Hopefully a Rangers series win, a second one to keep this season going. Now, Nathan Eovaldi provided a gem last night, saving this bullpen, but he did it in a new way. This curveball is as a pitch that he has found a new grip to, a new release to. Whatever the specifics of it are, it is just better than it's ever been, and he's using it more than he's ever thrown it. And he's throwing it in different counts. I mean, right now it's got a 56% whiff rate. That's not sustainable. But even in a smaller sample size, that's insane. That is an insanely good whiff rate, a swing and miss rate on a pitch. If it's above 30%, that's pretty solid. Above 35%, that's elite. Above 40%, that's outrageous. Above 50%, at 56%, that's unreasonable, just unreasonably good. And the splitter is, getting a swing and miss rate at 42.9%. The cutter is also getting, a swings and misses about a quarter of the time, but the fastball swing and miss rate last year, it was at 18.6%. When it was up there averaging 95, it was around 16% in 2022, and in 2023. It was actually, that was around 18.6%, and then 17.8% last year. So around 1 out of every 5 times, a little bit less than that the last couple of years. That's how much they've been swinging and missing at the four-seam fastball when it's been in that upper velocity. But the way that it's playing right now, it's not getting that. It's not the same pitch. He's still throwing it more than he's thrown any other pitch. Right now he's throwing the 53 four-seam fastballs, 51 splitters, and 45 curveballs. That curveball rate is, basically a quarter of his pitches at this point, and that is significantly more than he's thrown in his career. But the fastball whiff rate this year, with the velocity down, it's only at 5%, which is not good when that's your primary pitch. So he had to figure out other ways to be effective. And the curveball, he has never thrown it more than 18.8% of the time. This year so far, 24% of the time. So one out of every 4 pitches is a curveball, and it is very, very effective. And last night, Mike Bassick on the broadcast pointed this out, and it was a good thing to point out, that he's pitching backwards. He's pitching counterintuitively. Normally, you start guys off with a four-seam fastball. Normally, more pitchers have better control, better command of the fastball than they do their off-speed stuff, their breaking pitches, their splitters, their changeups, their stuff that's not fastballs. And so normally you want to throw that fastball early on, establish strike, get ahead early, and then when you're up and you get the batter to 2 strikes and you're up 0-2 in a count, then you drop the breaking stuff, the hammer, in the dirt and make them chase and expand the zone, because you throw pitches that you can't get hurt on when you're up there. But Eovaldi has such a good feel for this breaking ball right now, and such a good feel for his splitter and for the cutter as well. He's throwing those pitches first, and then throwing the fastball when he's already up. He's throwing that in counts where you think, okay, now I got to look out for expanding the zone. Then he'll throw a fastball right in there and get called strikes with it, because the velocity is not getting the swing and miss. He's like, okay, well, I can just surprise him with a fastball, and just kind of pitching the reverse way of how hitters expect. And that is just such smart pitching. I mean, Nathan Eovaldi is such a dog. He is such a big game pitcher. He always steps up when the Rangers need him most. And with this pen being so eviscerated the last couple of days, I mean, all of your top guys pitched 3 games. All of the Rangers' top leverage relievers pitched 3 out of the first 4 games. And you cannot throw a guy 4 out of 5 games. You just can't. Unless he's throwing only 2 to 4 pitches in those games. And other times he's getting up more than once and having to throw warm-up pitches usually more than once. And so your closer, like Luke Jackson, he threw 3 of those first 4 games. He was not going to be available for the first game in Cincy. You'd ideally like him to not have to throw in that second game either, give them all a couple of days off. And he did that. He gave the whole bullpen a day off. That's a huge thing. And in the game before, the Rangers did not use any of their A relievers. They used Gerson Garabito to mop up some innings. They used Mark Church, and was a confusing outing. Still a shutout outing, 1 1/3 innings. Would have rather had a few more innings from him, but you take what you can get. And then they had, of course, the shutdown reliever Ezekiel Duran throw a shutout inning. And thankfully, since they lost, they only had to throw 8 innings as opposed to 9 because they were losing on the road. And Nathan Eovaldi giving this pen a day off is a huge, huge win. I mean, this pen is going to be taxed. And Nathan Eovaldi, while every game is not going to be a complete game shutout, every game is not going to be a Mannix, I'm pretty sure. I mean, he's more than welcome to prove me wrong to go and throw, 30 Maddoxes, 30 complete game shutouts on fewer than 100 pitches. I'm pretty sure if he doesn't give up an earned run the whole season and he throws what would be probably 250 innings, I'm pretty sure that Nathan Eovaldi would win the Cy Young. I feel pretty darn confident that thing would be unanimous. He'd also probably win MVP. But overall, he's going to ask to eat innings. He's thrown 15 in his first couple of starts, 6 innings in the last one, 9 innings in this most recent one. And so the rest of this pen, there's going to be limits on, or the rest of this rotation, there's going to be limits on it. There's going to be a lot asked of this pen. That's why a lot of the guys who the Rangers were considering for those final spots, or even for some of the more, pivotal roles in the bullpen, they wanted guys who could throw multiple innings, because Jacob deGrom is probably going to be throwing around 80 to 85 pitches, 5, maybe 6 innings for the first at least month of the season. And he's only going to be throwing once every 6 days the first month of the season. Kumar Rocker, I think they're going to be hoping they're going to be more careful with him than they were in his first start. And hopefully he's going to be able to go, 4, 5, 6 innings consistently. With Jack Leiter, he hasn't always been the most economical, so you don't know how many innings he's going to give you if his first start was any indicator. And hopefully he can just do more things like that and then, ramp it up to 100 pitches and give you 5, 6, maybe 7 innings sometimes. That might be a bit much to ask for him. But then you look at Malley, who's also coming off a Tommy John recovery. And so, 3 out of these 5 guys are coming off of Tommy John recovery. And Jack Leiter isn't always the most economical in going deep into games. At least he hasn't been so far. He's more than welcome to prove me wrong. But Eovaldi, that leaves him as the main one that you look at him and you go, okay, Big Hoss, you gotta give us 6, 7, maybe 8. If you could give us 9, that would be very, very nice innings, quality innings too. And hopefully this Rangers offense steps up so that, some of those games that Eovaldi's able to, go at these hitters a little bit more. Because this was not just a regular 99 pitch Maddox. This was these are high stress pitches. This was a game that, literally at any point, one swing could have tied it and this could have gone to extra innings. And then you have to ask your pen to do even more. And that's also super duper not ideal. But the way that Nathan Eovaldi stepped up in this game, knowing that the Rangers needed innings, needed quality, and doing it while his fastball velocity is down and it's not at the same rate. And shout out to Higgy for calling a heck of a game. I don't know how much Higgy was actually calling versus Eovaldi calling, because it seems like Eovaldi also has a pitch comm, so maybe Evo was the one calling the pitches, but the receiving, the framing, all of that goes along with being a catcher and making sure a guy's in his rhythm. Higgy was feeling it. Maybe Higgy is going to be Eovaldi's personal catcher at this point. I think Higgy was in the lineup on opening day because the Rangers were facing a lefty and a tough lefty, and Higashioka has very much hit lefties extremely well in his career, and Jonah Heim had kind of hit them well before, but not so much last year. He's kind of hitting everybody well this year, so I think the Rangers might just be trading off at this point, but that relationship is boding well. The new curveball is boding well for Eovaldi. It's unlocking a new version of himself, because eventually everybody gets old. Eventually, unless you're one of very, very few select guys, Nolan Ryan. Also, don't ever compare anyone to Nolan Ryan. Not even the only other big leaguer to come out of Alvin, Texas. Don't compare Nathan Eovaldi to Nolan Ryan. But not everybody can throw 95, 96, 98, 300 times a game into their, mid-40s. That's not reasonable. So guys have to figure out new ways to be effective, new ways, new pitches, new grips on certain pitches, new, times to attack hitters with certain pitches, new, pitch sequencing. That's what this was. This was Nathan Eovaldi and Kyle Higashioka and Mike Maddox and everybody that was involved in this game plan. That was them finding new ways for a dominant pitcher to stay dominant and find a new way of dominance to where if that fastball velocity starts to come back, he might be even better than he was in this game against an offense that literally just dropped 13 runs on this team yesterday, the day before. Now it's Wednesday, so literally the day before, from 13 runs to nothing, because Nathan Eovaldi is an absolute dog. You know who else is an absolute dog? Wyatt Langford, having himself a heck of a game, but the rest of this offense, maybe it's time for them to step up and help both Nathan Eovaldi and Wyatt Langford. We're talking about that and more right after this. This show is brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it is a complete financial command center. You track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and you start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. Shout out to the everydayers making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. On Friday's show, I'll be back. Today is Frisco Rough Riders Media Day, and I'll be talking to some of the Frisco Rough Riders players. And on Friday, I will preview this Rangers minor league season, what you need to know about the Rangers farm before the season starts for, everybody else outside of AAA. And one last thing about Nathan Eovaldi before we get off of him and talk about this offense, which has been less explosive than we might have hoped. Just going and looking at his baseball savant page for the season so far. You look at pitching run value, just the overall catch-all metric for kind of how good all of his arsenal is. He's in the 100th percentile. He is the best for all of his types of pitches combined. So basically just pitcher run value, just how much better he's been than every other pitcher. He's been the best pitcher in baseball so far by that stat. His off-speed run value, 100th percentile. Not shocking that the splitter is up there. Is in the 98th percentile for the full season last year. The breaking ball run value, 99th percentile. So very few players better than his breaking ball, the curveball, which he is using a whole lot more. And the slider, he's even using 3% of the time. And it's not that good of a pitch. So that brings that down, I think, from the 100th to the 99th. And then the fastball run value, that includes the cutter, which has been very good this year, and the four-seam fastball that, again, I said the velocity has been down, the swing and miss rate has been down. Even the fastball run value is in the top 3% of baseball. That's just crazy how good he has been this year. And so far, it's not been crazy good, but it's been very good so far for Wyatt Langford, getting all of the Rangers runs out of the way early on, so we could just focus on the Nathan Eovaldi gym for the rest of this game. Wyatt Langford hitting his not his least hard hit ball, but one of his less hard hit balls over the fence for the home run is actually his two softest hit balls on the day. The single, which should have been a double if not for a base running error, we'll talk about that in a second, at 92.3 miles an hour, and then the home run at 101.5 miles per hour. Only would have been a home run in 18 out of 30 ballparks. He had a couple of flyouts over 104 miles an hour, 104.2. That had an expected batting average of 810. That was just a flyout to the warning track. Then 107.6, his hardest hit ball of the day. Would have been a home run in 3 out of 30 ballparks, and it was in left field. I'm surprised that it wouldn't have been a home run in Houston. It would have been a home run in Fenway, Wrigley, and Citi Field. But this guy is just making a big impact on the baseball. He is taking better swings. He is taking more informed swings, it feels like. It just looks like he knows what's coming. He knows what he wants to swing at, as opposed to just fouling off stuff that he doesn't want to swing at, that he can't do any damage with which was kind of how it looked like his plate appearances were going for the first half of last year. Heck, even the first, basically 4.5 months of the season until those final 6 weeks where he locked in and absolutely started obliterating pitches. And, he has been hitting the ball with authority. He has been driving the ball. He has been, even expanding the zone on pitches that he knows he can hit. And he has been hitting those pitches incredibly hard. And Wyatt Langford has been very, very good so far this year, defensively, offensively. Now, on the base paths, he has some room to improve there. His sprint speed has been down a little bit from where it was last year, only because he hasn't really had a whole lot of opportunities to just go and get that thing going, actually, run at full speed. He got thrown out trying to stretch a single into a double because he was of two minds. It ended up ending the inning in what could have been a very promising inning for the Rangers. Unfortunately, that was not the case for him. He got caught up right when he got past first base. He got thrown out by the right fielder, who has a pretty decent arm. Jake Fraley has a pretty solid arm, not quite Adolisian levels of a big arm and outfield assists, but still pretty good. But when you're halfway in between first base and second base, and you can't decide whether to go there, actually it was more like a quarter of the way between first base and second base, and you get rung up there and you get thrown out in a big spot where it could have just been a really nice single. Runner went first to third. Maybe you steal second base after that, or maybe you just sit there because Jock Peterson has been swinging a good bat lately. The results haven't been there, but he had a really good game in this one. But, if you're not getting thrown out on the bases, he also got thrown out trying to go from first to third on a single in the series against Boston. That one, he was, I think I really like that aggression, and eventually the Rangers need to be thrown out on the bases more than they were last year. They just do. And that may sound insane to say, but if you're not getting thrown out on the bases, it means you're not pushing the envelope enough. It means you're not trying to take that extra base enough. It means you're being too conservative. And this Rangers team has a lot of speed. I mean, Adolis Garcia looks so much faster this year. I think we'll see a lot more stolen bases from him. Leo Taveras has already been aggressive, stealing a couple of bases when he's gotten on base this year. Josh Smith, aggressive on the base paths in last night's game, trying to take that extra base in a one-run game at that point, trying to expand it to a two, maybe even a 3-run game. This team needs to take those extra bases more frequently, especially Wyatt Langford. When you're that fast, last year he was in the top 2% of baseball in terms of sprint speed. He'll get back there. He didn't just suddenly become slow when he turned 23. That's not how that works. But I want to see Wyatt Langford be more aggressive, a little bit of smarter aggression. If he was just thrown out trying to turn that single into a double and he had no hesitation rounding first base, I would have been like, yeah, good. That's good aggression. Getting thrown out because you can't figure out which way you want to go, that's bad aggression. You got to kind of toe that line. It's not that you always want to get thrown out. It's just occasionally you need to follow that Tony Beasley windmill at third base and push the envelope, force the team that you're playing against, the defense you're playing against, to make that perfect play to get you out. Because if they don't, then you take that extra base, you get that extra run, and that ends up doing more good for you than the harm of getting thrown out from being aggressive will do. But the rest of this offense, just not a great showing so far from this offense. There's been a lot of discourse about Marcus Semien, leadoff hitter. I think that's definitely premature. I mean, it's been 6 games. It is way too early to really pull any kind of meaningful trend from a hitter after 6 games. I mean, the most plate appearances that anybody has as a Texas Ranger this year is, well, tied with Wyatt Langford and Marcus Semien at 24 plate appearances apiece. That's, you can't really start getting any kind of sample size below 50, but he has been really bad so far this year. He's hitting .087. I mean, Corey Seager is hitting .176. When you're $500 million infield, their OPS is a combined barely over 650 at 652. That's not going to win you a whole lot of ball games normally. But hey, the rest of this offense has found ways to step up. I mean, heck, even you look at the rest of this starting offense. I mean, Jock Peterson, he's been, like I said, putting together quality plate appearances, hitting the ball hard. He had a nice hard hit double. In this one, he also had a walk. He's only got a 478 OPS. But again, like I said, it's been 6 games, fewer than 20 plate appearances. It's impossible to draw trends there. I mean, Jake Berger has had a lot of hard hit balls, including his first home run of the season in this series. His OPS is below 600. Josh Smith just got his first hit of the season. Louis Taveras is hitting sub 200. The only guys who are really hitting so far are Wyatt Langford and Adolis Garcia, and also Jonah Heim. Shouts to and also Kevin Pillar. Excuse me, can't forget about Kevin Pillar. But this offense will get going. There have been quality plate appearances, and for Marcus Semien, it's way too soon to take a guy who is half of your $500 million middle infield, who has finished top 3 in MVP voting in half of the past 6 seasons. Since 2019, every odd year has ended with Marcus Semien top 3 MVP finish. Heck, you look at some of the years that he's had, there's not been very many years where Marcus Semien has started quickly, especially that first month. His career OPS in April and March is 710. It gets much better in May, 50 points higher in May, and he is a much better second half player than he is a first half player. A 736 OPS in the first half for his career, which is a little bit under 3,500 plate appearances. In the second half, 60 points higher, 62 points higher, just a couple points shy of 800 OPS in the second half. You might remember that season where he had the best season that any second baseman's ever had. That was 2021. And you know how he started that season? Terribly. A 658 OPS in April and March. He followed it up with his best month of the season, an 1130 OPS in May. You also might remember his first season here. He ended up with a 4.5 WAR season, his first season here, despite a truly abysmal start to the year. I mean, he didn't hit his first home run until towards the end of May in 2022. Still finished the year with more than 25 home runs. Still finished the year as a very good baseball player. And I think he'll figure it out. I think eventually he will get that thing figured out. And, I don't know how long of a leash Boshi's going to give him as that leadoff role. I think maybe eventually at some point this season, we will see Marcus Semien drop down in the lineup. And it won't be just because, Marcus is washed, Marcus is bad or whatever. But I think it's going to be because Wyatt Langford is going to keep being this good. Adolis Garcia, I think, is going to keep having a great season. And eventually some of these other guys, hopefully Semien and Seager as well, who has not looked right to start this season. He's not hit the ball hard. He's not made great swing decisions. He's looked good defensively, but that calf, I think, is bothering him in the box. I think eventually Marcus might get moved down. But again, it's been 6 games. I love the overreaction, remembering that baseball is back, but let's pause for just a second on saying this whole offense sucks. Everything's not great. This team is doing incredibly well. Nathan Eovaldi is fantastic. And by the way, this team, although for some reason they aren't first in the AL West right now because the Angels are doing inexplicable things, this team is still 4-2 and they've barely hit at all. This is a great start to the season, and hopefully Jack Leiter will keep it going in this final game of the series against Cincinnati. That's going to do it for today's show. Thank y'all so much for listening and subscribing, and until next time, don't forget to enjoy baseball.